Then we have the Lamassu, which is an anamorphic figure. Very similar to composite figures, but these are very specific. So instead of just different parts of animals, it's always different parts of animals with human attributes. And anamorphic figures, in this case, this is anamorphic because we have the human head and the animal wings, animal body. More specifically, wings and the body of a bull or oxen, which is not usually the body that we would think of today, but to them it does represent something. That body represents strength and power. It's why we use oxen as plows and that sort of thing. The wings will represent wisdom, speed, agility. Anytime you see wings on a god, usually that is the symbolism. And the human head tells us that this is a very intelligent creature. What they're doing is not creating a mythical creature, but they're showing us the attributes of the ruler. That incredible rational knowledge of a human, the speed and speed of thought, as well as possibly speed of motion of the king, as well as the strength of the king, both internal in terms of mental and external in terms of being able to lift up and put down heavy things. And this is partly in the round, so it's carved in such high relief that it almost looks like we can pick it off that backing stone, even though we can't. So this is known as partially in the round. For this class, it's relief. Things are either in the round or relief. I'm just going to simplify it. So if it's attached to a backing stone, as we see here, it must be in relief. Now there's a problem with the Lamassu, and it is a big one. Go ahead and look at this and just think about it, mull it over. What could the problem possibly be? Leaving aside the whole wings on a bull, human head on a winged bull thing, leave that all aside for a moment and just look at it. And what you're going to notice is a problem when you look at it from an angle. You see, the Lamassu was created to be viewed from the front or the side. The sculptor was dealing with that corner that runs through the sculpture. So you'll notice he has 5 legs. In fact, those 2 legs are the same leg. That is the front right leg in both angles. Now, the sculptor does this for a reason. Had he not sculpted the second leg on the front, from the front view, it would look like this animal is standing on one leg. Very awkward. Had he not sculpted the second one that we see, that's under his belly, then it would look like the front legs are static and the back legs are walking forward, which also doesn't make a lot of sense. So what he does is he duplicates it. He simply puts another leg in there. It's one answer to the problem. So from here, we're moving on to more Assyrians, and we're dealing with the Assyrian archers pursuing enemies, and this is another piece of political propaganda. Yes, we've looked at victory steals that are clearly political propaganda. The Standard of Ur is clearly political propaganda, but this is an even more clear piece. And art and propaganda have gone together forever, even today, and we'll get into some of those modern ideas later on. And this was cut into the mud brick walls of the Assyrian palace, and relates to an event that occurred in 878 BCE, when the king drove his enemies into the Euphrates River. Now, the tricky thing is, we're actually going to see multiple viewpoints at once, because they're trying to make everything relatable. They're trying to make it understandable so you know exactly what's going on. For example, when you look at the archers, or you look at the enemy, they are swimming, but they're in profile, which, unless you're in the water, you wouldn't see them in profile. The archers are on this shore that seems to be going uphill, even though it's supposed to be falling back in the background. Remember, perspective is something humans are still working on. They are sucking on something. It looks like they're holding pigs. It's possible that that's sort of an early PFD. The pigs get kind of upset by it, but it works for the archers. And when you look at the water, you'll notice we're seeing the water from a different direction. We're actually seeing the water from above, as if we're seeing all those swirls you would see in a river. But we're seeing it from directly above. And at the same time, we're seeing the archers from the side. It creates a very disjointed relief sculpture, but an easy narrative to read. We know that the archers are running the enemy into the Euphrates. We know there's a castle. One thing to ignore here is ignore the hierarchy of scale, because they are focusing not on the most important person, but the most important parts of the narrative. The archers and the enemy, you notice, are the two largest forms here. And the proportions don't make sense, but again, it's a narrative. So a lot of reasons why we see this. And of course, as political propaganda, this is reminding everyone who visits the palace that this king ran his enemies into the Euphrates. And this is particularly terrifying because no one can swim at this point. It's very rare to find someone who can swim. Most people are afraid of rivers even today. So it's basically a death warrant for them. And he wants to remind people of how ruthless and how good he is in combat by doing this. So it's propaganda. It's giving a specific message from the ruler that he wants to pass on to his people and to any visitor to the palace.